This is Rob Kilmer, taking apart the final version of the stimulus package. That's what we're doing this week on You Defend It. Welcome to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. The phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. As always, callers to the show will need to take a position, be able to defend it with an argument that is factual, not emotional. And if you can't make your point without insulting someone, you can't make your point on this show. And by the way, I will get later on in the show to a message left on my blog that is there for you to read right now, as well as something someone sent to me in the mail, which constitutes the exact opposite of what this show is about. But I'll get to that. Callers and guests on the show are going to be treated with complete respect. For my part, I will ask questions that matter and give people the opportunity to answer. My website is www.youdefendit.com. That's youdefendit.com. You can give me your comments on the show anytime. By Friday of each week, I will have the topics up for the next show. You can also visit my blog through the site. You can read my posts. You can leave your own. And the lineup for the Sunday talk shows will also be posted there on Saturdays. All right, this week we're going to be talking about the final version of the stimulus package that passed yesterday. I'll read two summaries of it from what I think are different ends of the political spectrum, one from ABC News, one from Fox News. I also want to say that on my website, I've posted a link to two links to a breakdown of the stimulus package. It breaks down the spending and tax cut side. It's from a website called ProPublica, and everywhere I looked on the web for a breakdown, I was referred to this. It's already become the definitive early source for a real thorough breakdown of what's in this package. Okay, ABC News. This is how they reported the passing of the stimulus package. In addition to roughly $286 billion in tax cuts and $54 billion for cash-strapped states, the package contains $311 billion in appropriations, including $120 billion in infrastructure, $14.2 billion for health care, $105.9 billion for education and training, more than $37.5 billion for energy infrastructure, $24.3 billion for those impacted by the economic crisis, and $7.8 billion for law enforcement and other programs. Fox News reported it this way. The plan, freshly estimated at $787 billion by the Congressional Budget Office, combines $281 billion in tax cuts with $308 billion in outlays funded by the appropriations committees and about $198 billion in spending for benefit programs such as unemployment assistance, $250 payments for millions of people receiving Social Security benefits, and extra money for states to help with the Medicaid health program for the poor and disabled. And again, a breakdown of the tax cut and spending aspects of it is on. You can reach through my website, and I got it from ProPublica. And it shows literally by category what money is being spent and what taxes are going to be implemented. Now, it would seem to me, based on what I've been able to read so far, that although it is not 50-50 tax cuts and spending, it is, even Fox News is characterizing it as $281 billion in tax cuts, $308 billion in appropriations. Then you have different other monies going to the states and for other programs. For me, it's hard to believe that with at least a third of this, by any objective accounting, going towards tax cuts, that there was not a single Republican in the House who could vote for this. And only 3 senators, Republican senators, voted for it. So out of a total of 181 Republicans in the Congress, there are 178 in the House, none of whom voted for it, and 3 of the Senate Republicans. Out of a total, you're looking at 3 total Republicans who voted for this. And to me, that sort of begs the question of bipartisanship and what is it? Is it getting votes? Is it bipartisan only if there are Republican votes? Or does the process need to be bipartisan? I don't know what it means. At some point, I don't think that there is going to be much bipartisanship going forward. When you have the leading voice of at this point, the leading voice of the Republican Party appears to be Rush Limbaugh, openly advocating for the failure of the presidency and the failure of this package. And what surprised me was how far I had to look today to find any kind of real breakdown of the numbers. I started looking about 4:30 this morning. It was passed last night. And the coverage of this issue, despite the fact that everybody agrees we are in an economic crisis right now, a crisis, literally spreading worldwide. The only reporting of it I could find really was about the politics of it. Not the numbers, not the real arguments, not the facts. Nobody's defending anything. Everybody's taking the predictable positions, and it's enough to make you wonder if partisanship or bipartisanship is really possible. I mean, what could be more urgent than this issue? I don't know. People you know, people I know, are affected by this economy right now, and it's getting worse, and it will get worse before it gets better. And despite the fact that at least a third of this was tax cuts, which continues to add to the debt, I understand one of the bigger issues the Republicans have is that, we are increasing the debt. Tax cuts do that too. You are decreasing the supply of money into the government. That creates a deficit. Nobody voted for it. Nobody said, it's not perfect, but I'll vote for it because we're in trouble. Nobody offered any real alternative other than tax cuts. And I think that does not bode well for the future of this presidency and for the short-term future of this country. I would think that under these circumstances, with the situation as dire as it is, we might get something approaching bipartisanship. Instead, you had 3 Republican senators, all of whom have been vilified by the right for cooperating with Barack Obama. That was it. That was the extent of the Republican contribution to this. Complaining about it and then not voting for it. We will be back. You are listening to You Defend It right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. The phone number to call into the show is 772-1290. We left off talking about the stimulus package and how it got just 3 votes from the Republican Party. Out of 178 House members, what do they have, 43 in the Senate, I believe. And they could not maybe 41 in the Senate. I should know that. None of them would vote for it, other than the 3 that I mentioned. 2 from Maine, and Arlen Specter from Pennsylvania. Now, there's no question that there are philosophical differences at play here. I think that's obvious. That's legitimate. And as I look at what was passed, I mean, a lot of this, as I've said before, has nothing to do with job creation, I don't think. I mean, I think it's impossible to argue that. And I'll go through one of the categories here in that breakdown I've set forth on my website. There's $323 million allocated to things like a new Office of Inspector General, for assistance to the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Agriculture, Office of Inspector General at the Department of Commerce, Office of Inspector General, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. There's no question about that. Those, I don't see where those are going to create a single job. On the other hand, some of the tax cuts, those are longer term. And bipartisanship, to me, sort of invokes the whole notion of compromise. There are things in here that have nothing to do with creating jobs on the spending side. No question about that. As I said 2 weeks ago, I think it was, I think the Democrats blew it when it came to the real opportunity they had here. Blew it. Returned to their old ways and made themselves easy targets for accusations that they do nothing but spend money. On the flip side, though, over a third of this is the tax cuts that the Republicans wanted. And apparently, every single one of them in the House would not take yes for an answer. They couldn't move at all unless, what? It was a pure tax cut bill? President Obama stated clearly that, yeah, I'm going to spend money in this thing because I intend to create jobs. And I intend to spend $100 billion or more on building things, bridges, roads, things of that nature. But he exceeded that and lost support, but he shouldn't have lost all of it. I don't know how it ended up with 0 Republican votes in the House when they got at least some of what they wanted. And it makes me wonder if bipartisanship is possible at all. We have Frank on the line. Morning, Frank.
Hi, Rob.
How are you?
Good. My voice is a little crackly, so I hope you can understand me. My take on bipartisanship and the stimulus package is a little different from yours. And my question is this. There were 3 iterations of this bill, okay, the Congress, the Senate, and now this compromise.
Right.
Number 2 was 600 pages. My question is, how do you vote on a 1,100-page bill which no one has had time to read? Now, I remember seeing both a Republican and Democrat on yesterday, and I can't remember their names. They both agreed, we haven't had time to read this. If you could read, I think the calculation was 642 words per minute. It'd take you 12 hours to read this. The lobbyists were given this bill before any of the politicians were. How do you have bipartisanship when the Republicans were not even allowed in the room with the new bill by Pelosi? I remember that, President Obama, he stood before the American people in November, and he said that all bills would be put on the Internet for 5 days before he signed off on them. Now, bills 1 and 2, and I don't even remember what they were, that was not done. Let's see what he does with the stimulus bill, whether he keeps his promise. I mean, I'm amazed that, they pushed this thing through like that.
Well, I think that, thanks for the call, Frank.
Could I mention a couple other things?
Sure.
Some of the things that, and you got started into this by putting this in the bill. Now, Harry Reid is from Nevada, right?
Yes.
$8 billion for a bullet train from Disneyland to Los Angeles, or from Disneyland in Los Angeles to Las Vegas in Nevada. I mean, that's really amazing. $30 million to save the saltwater harvest mouse that lives in Pelosi's district.
Actually, I got to correct you on that one only because I heard a lot about this yesterday. That the $30 million is going to a facility, one of the things that facility has done in the past or is involved in is certain ecological research, of which a portion is devoted to this one species of. But I heard somebody yesterday say $30 million for mice, and it was quickly debunked. That's not what that's about at all.
Okay, let me tell you another one. $1.6 billion for science, which was put in the boundary of the bill, handwritten in, no other explanation. $1.6 billion for science, $2 billion, and I'll use your word, part of which Acorn Community Organizing gets, or maybe all of it.
Or it could get none of it.
Or it could get none of it. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Right.
And there's no question. I mean, you're not going to get an argument from me that there's stuff in here that has no business being in here whatsoever.
But remember what Obama said. This bill contains not a single earmark, not a single pet project.
His version, and I'll give you his argument, is, and Harry Reid's, is that that will create jobs. And, you know, I was thinking this week about the whole junkets that these corporations are going on, and I think we need to kind of be careful about. I don't think the bailout companies should be doing anything, but I should be taking these trips. But I also don't think that we should be kind of denigrating trips to Vegas as a whole. Right. I was thinking about that because I was there, and you know, that's every bit as much a part of the economy as anything else.
Yeah. I would look at the politicians' junkets, too.
I agree. But, you know, there's no question. My point is this, and it's probably a little broader, but there's no question there's stuff in this bill that has no business in this bill. None. It will not create a single job. And the Democrats deserve the black eye they're going to get on that. And it's ridiculous. It's tragic. You know, they had a once-in-a-lifetime, hopefully, opportunity to really confront a crisis, not only a crisis, but a crisis to a large extent not of their own making. That's the best kind of crisis to confront in politics.
Yeah,
and what did they do with it? They became caricatures of Democrats, and they just started loading up. And a lot of it came out through amendments and through committee, but there's also, I suspect, knowing Democrats, that out of the $280-some billion that was in there in tax cuts, Democrats didn't want any of it. knowing Democrats, and it's in there, and yet not a single Republican vote in the House, not one.
Yeah,
that's for me. That's tough to swallow.
I just have two quick comments, Rob. To be fair, the Republicans had 8 years, and they blew it too. And the Chinese have just come out, and they said, we hate you guys. Why? You know, the Chinese had a stimulus plan, too. A lot of money and almost everything into jobs for, you know, building bridges, fixing roads, and that kind of stuff, you know. We didn't do that. But they said, we hate you. And they said, why? Because you're devaluating the dollar. The U.S. is printing, I think the printing went up 70% over 6 months ago. It's going to be flooding the economy with dollars, and if inflation, I think, is going to blow up.
And every dollar that's printed is worth less than the one before.
Absolutely.
But, you know, you got to try something. And I had said before, you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And I don't mean with the printing of the money, but I mean as a whole. If as a block, you know, I could see if a majority of Republicans voted against this, but not one, because they didn't get everything they wanted. Not one. In the face of a national, spreading to be global crisis. I don't know. I think you got to take a hard look at what bipartisanship is really possible, or how much of it is. I got to let you go. I got to get a couple things in here, and then I got to go to Paul Harvey or Paul Harvey
bye.
Jr. Thanks very much, Frank.
Bye-bye.
And I had another caller during that time. If you want to, that one ran kind of long, but it's always nice to talk to Frank. if you want to call back, I welcome it. Yeah, again, there are things that just have no place in a stimulus package. No question about it. And as I look through this, in fact, I printed out the spending portion of this bill versus the tax cuts portion of this bill, again from that ProPublica breakdown. The spending is 15 pages, the tax cuts are 4. So there's more spending than tax cuts, and not all of the spending is geared towards job creation, which is what it was supposed to be all about. But having said that, there's a psychological component to this recovery. If Americans don't feel like there's a unified effort to bring this country out of what it's in, it is going to take longer to come out of what it's in. And it's amazing to me that there was not a single House Republican who could vote for this. Not one. Despite the fact that there are certainly tax cuts in here that are going to exasperate the debt. Tax cuts that have been long sought after, they're in there. In any event, Paul Harvey is up from 8:30 to 8:35. We'll be back right after him. We're listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton. Computers as qualified education expenses, refundable first-time homebuyer credit, sales tax deduction for vehicle purchases, temporary suspension of taxation of unemployment benefits, extension of the alternative minimum tax relief for 2009, and the list goes on. Already starting to load up a little bit here with calls. Let me see if I can get to Pete from Endicott. You there?
Yes, Rob.
Hello.
Hey, I heard about a week ago for Maurice Hinchy say that this package would do for Broome County great things, would bring dozens of construction jobs. He didn't say hundreds or thousands, but dozens.
Up to 24, maybe?
And
as many as 36?
That's what I'm getting at. If that's the case for the rest of the country, too, it's not going to help at all. Even in good times, that few new jobs wouldn't make much of a difference. Most of the people that I know of that have been let go from jobs have been support staff like secretaries and office managers, women, maybe in their 30s or 40s, and I just can't see them grabbing a jackhammer and going out there and building a new bridge for us.
Well, the theory is that the more construction there is out there, the more ripple effect there is, and the more money earned from construction will be spent in other areas, and everybody will benefit. I think that the theory is that the quickest way to get jobs going and to generate real income is to put people to work building things. But I agree with you that dozens of jobs are not going to meet a hundreds of jobs problem, if not thousands, in this area. Thanks very much for calling.
Alrighty. Bye now.
Bye. Also got Joe from Binghamton.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Fine. I'm just saying about the tax cuts.
Okay.
They want to give tax cuts now. Why not just not tax the people as much? Let them keep their own money. And the other thing is the reasons businesses go out of business is because they're overtaxed. Why are they leaving New York State? Because it's the highest tax state in the union. It's simple to just say, let the people keep more of their money instead of taking it off them, then letting them beg for some of it back and think they're getting a big favor. Why not just not tax the people as much? Let the people work the money. That's the way it's supposed to be. But they want the power, so they want the money, and then they'll divvy it up the way they feel fit.
Well, I'll tell you when
you know what I'm saying? That seems to be elementary to me. If you ask a business, why are you leaving New York State?
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Can you do me a favor and turn your radio off or down?
Turn that.
You there? Hello?
Yeah, I turned it down.
Okay.
Or off, rather. But you know what I'm saying? Everybody I talk to, why are you leaving New York State? It's because of the business, because of the taxes. You know what I'm saying? They don't say, well, I'm going to New York State because the taxes are friendly and I could do better in my business. They leave because they're overtaxed. When I seen Lane, they were in business ever since I got here. They're in business 40-some years. They closed their doors.
Right.
It ain't because it's tax friendly. It's because they can't afford it. And when businesses leave here, it's because they're overtaxed.
And once you get into workers' comp and things like that,
then it's a killer. But I mean,
it's unbelievable.
You look at all that stuff, and then you say, well, we're overtaxed, so they're going to give us they're going to send some back. Maybe they're going to send it to the wrong people or not. You just said trickle down from construction workers. That was the same thing. I'd rather trickle down from places like IBM where they employ a lot of people, not going to spend some money on a sandwich. You know what I'm saying? So in other words, why not just let the people keep more of their money instead of let them beg for it to get back from people like Hinchy and say, well, you're going to provide a couple of jobs. Good for you. Thank you. But, I mean, you're overtaxing me. Then you're going to send me a little bit back, and maybe not to me, maybe to who you think. And that lets them keep their power. You know what I mean? So I'd rather say let the people keep more of their money instead of taxing them to the point where they got to leave or they got to close up shop. And that's where I'm at. I'm a businessman. But, I mean, everybody I talk to when I go to a convention, people in my same business, and I compare taxes, they're surviving, but we can't even survive. When I tell them the taxes we pay, or the taxes I pay, I'm working 9 months a year just about now for the government.
Well,
maybe I'm not doing so good because people can't afford to buy my product because of the taxes. But why not just say, give us a protection, civil wars, in wars and that, protect from the police department, give us fire service, and road, take care of the roads. The rest, let the people do. I mean, don't strap them to the point where you got to give them a tax breakdown.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, the problem we have right now with lowering taxes is that there's such a
wait a minute. I don't say lower. Don't even say lower taxes. Say why should we lower the taxes? Let them keep more of their own money. It's their money.
You'd have to lower the taxes to do that.
Yeah.
And my
but
point is that
why raise them? Why do they keep raising the taxes? This bill they're going to pass now, this is going to raise taxes. Eventually, they're going to raise the taxes again. And then they're going to have all the money. They'll take care of the businesses, too, like they do with the banks. Eventually, they're going to take over the businesses also. And then they're going to be loaning the money. They're going to, then you know what you got then. That's a different name. That ain't democracy or that ain't free enterprise no more. That's something else.
Well,
that's where we're heading.
Thanks very much for calling in.
Good luck to you.
Thank you. The problem, he's right. If you could keep your money in the first place, we wouldn't have to talk about tax cuts. But right now, I mean, we've got to look at it in the context of what we have, which is, I mean, even on the state level, which I don't really like to get into on this show, but we have a state that has been absolutely drunk on spending for how long? And we have a massive budget problem. And it has to be addressed. And everybody keeps kicking it further down the road. Patterson at least seems to be willing to take it on. But what are you going to do? You got to pay it. Or continue to do what? To risk irrelevance. That's what. Not only as a state, New York, but as a country. Somebody mentioned, a caller mentioned, I believe it was Frank, China earlier. There's going to come a point in time where we are not even going to be able to sell our securities. We are not going to be able to raise the money to fund the spending that we engage in year after year after year after year that we don't pay for. And as far as tax cuts are concerned, nobody wants to pay taxes. I hate paying them. But on the other hand, even though it wasn't my decision, money was spent. There is an enormous deficit, and it's got to be paid, and it's going to be difficult to pay it, and hopefully it'll be excruciating to pay it. And it'll teach us not to get ourselves into this situation again. But the people who are willing to address this issue head on are few and far between. Governor Patterson, at least at this point, seems to be just about the only one. Okay, Joan on You there?
Yes, good
Pennington?
morning. How
Morning.
are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. There's two comments I'd like to make because the gentleman, I understand his frustration. What's happened here, we've set up a society where we have so many people that are expecting the government to take care of every little thing. This stimulus package will make that worse because now we're going to hand more over and they'll want more and more and more. I mean, we've had seen people that because of a certain tax, people are advertising there's hundreds of dollars on the table. They're coming in and want more money from the stimulus package, and they already got their maximum last year, okay?
Right.
The other thing that's happened is we've got a system today where the federal, state, city, county employees get more in benefits, namely pension and medical, than the people that are paying the bill. It is imploded. You can't have a system like that, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. When you say Governor Patterson is addressing some things, he needs to address those areas right there because they are putting us into bankruptcy in the state.
Well, I at least get the impression from Governor Patterson that he's willing to look at it. I mean, he's willing to try and, everybody hates everything he does. To me, sounds like he's doing it right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's trying to do some of the things that some of the corporations did several years ago, which started to make the people participate in the payment of things like your medical and doing away with pensions and making them save and participate in the 401ks and that sort of thing. That's what you have to do. The people have to participate. They can't have their hand out and expect that it's endless. It's not endless.
And he's also doing what none of his predecessors have done, which is tackle hard issues. I remember when everybody knows how spending went up under Cuomo, and then Pataki was no better. Pataki cuts a $4 billion deal with the hospital workers right before his last election. There's no accountability. There's no responsibility when it comes to the ultimate finances of this state. Now we've got a problem, and nobody wants to pay for it. And Patterson's saying, you're all paying for it.
That's right.
Simple as that. Well, thanks very much for the call.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Got one more call I want to try and get to before we get to a break. Maria, you there?
Yes, I am. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Fine, thank you for asking. Could I read a list of the taxes that we pay, and I have to fly with us? And there's more to this article. I'd like to send you the whole thing, but what you're discussing now is described right here, and why we are so destroyed.
Are you talking about in America or in New York State?
Just overall.
Okay.
Accounts receivable tax, air tax, that's cell phones, building permit tax, CDL license tax, cigarette tax, corporate income tax, dog license tax, federal income tax, federal unemployment tax, fishing license tax, food license tax, fuel permit tax, gasoline tax, hunting license tax, inheritance tax, inventory tax, IRS, interest charges, that's tax on top of tax, IRS, penalties, tax on top of tax, liquor tax, luxury tax, marriage license tax, Medicare tax, property tax, real estate tax, service charges tax, Social Security tax, road usage tax, that's trucker sales taxes, recreational vehicle tax, school tax, state income tax, state unemployment tax, telephone
I got to get you to Z here quickly because I got to get I got to do a commercial and then come back.
I'm going to send you this article, but anyway, at the end of it says, still think this is funny? Not one of these taxes existed 100 years ago, and our nation was the most prosperous in the world. We had absolutely no national debt. We had the largest middle class in the world, and Mom stayed home to raise the kids. What happened? Can you spell politicians? And that is the reason why we are destroyed from within before anybody drops any kind of a bomb or anything else over here. It's like the lady said before, it's imploded.
Well, I think your last comment there was devastatingly accurate. Thanks.
So have a really great day. And
you too.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Well, thank you, Maria.
Bye,
you
Ben.
as well. Bye. Okay, we're going to go to a commercial here and then come back. But when I come back, I want to talk about a post on my blog and also something that somebody sent me. In fact, I suspect it is the same person who sent this to me. and how, particularly in light of how this show this week has unfolded, how there's a way to address issues and a way not to address issues. And we'll talk about that when we come back. You are listening to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer right here on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton. Welcome back to You Defend It with Rob Kilmer. All right, this week I got in the mail a copy of a page from a New York Post from an editorial, actually not an editorial, an opinion piece by someone named Arthur Herman, and it was from the February 9th, 2009 New York Post. It was about Eric Holder, the Attorney General for the Obama administration. And then there's a handwritten note at the top from this person who sent it to me without including their name, but did include their cell phone number. It said, "Read this and grow up. Why someone as naive as you is allowed on radio is unbelievable." And then I got this posted on my website, which you are free to read. By the way, whenever the posts come in, I have to I look at them and I have to approve them to be actually put up on the website. I've approved every one that's ever come in, and I will continue to do so unless there's some profanity in it or something of that nature. But here's what it says. I'll read most of it. "Dear Mr. Kilmer, you are the most naive talk show host I have ever heard. Here are your marks. Economy, F. Guantanamo, F. Prisoners not convicted will be turned loose on the streets when their country will not take them. New York State government, F. We pay people to make decisions, not have thousands of citizens get together for solutions. Tax cuts, big F. The tax cuts led to the most income the country's ever had, but spending was out of control. Just look at Nancy Pelosi's stimulus package. Yes, it was hers. Obama should have talked to her first before she blindsided him with the pork. And he is so inexperienced he did not see it coming." I'm presuming these are from the same person. And as far as the cell phone number is concerned, I will not be calling you. If you want to talk, call the show. But if you want to do so, I don't want to hear your rants. I don't want to read them. I invite you to do what everybody else does on this show and what everybody today did on this show, which was act like we're in a crisis in this country and call with sincere, thoughtful, worried, but mature comments about what they think of what's going on right now and what has brought us here. Telling me I'm naive because I don't agree with you doesn't tell me anything about what you believe. You got a point to make? Defend it. You've given me F's for everything despite my perfect attendance, without telling me a single thing about what you believe. I don't want to hear it. You can do that everywhere else. In fact, most other shows encourage it. Not here. If you think I'm wrong about something, tell me why. I will be happy to talk about it with you. I'll be happy to back up my position. You back up yours. Telling me I'm naive doesn't cut it. That's not a position. That's part of a rant. That's what got us here. It's not what's going to get us out. Week after week on this show, we talk about issues in a fairly consistent format where I try and give you the objective facts, what I can find, like today, the breakdown of the stimulus. We've talked about a number of things on this show. I try and get as much out there as I can, and then we talk about it in a solution-oriented manner. Simply complaining about somebody else's point of view doesn't work anymore. You may have noticed we're in a crisis. How do you think we got there? We didn't get there by talking things through and coming up with solutions. We got there by each side making the other seem worse than it is. We got there with alarmists. For instance, prisoners not convicted will be turned loose on the streets when their country will not take them. That is a preposterous statement that cannot possibly be backed up or defended. It's not like any of the people who are held at Guantanamo right now are here legally. At a minimum, they would be where anybody facing deportation but not yet deported would be. This notion that these people will be turned loose on the streets, why would they be turned loose on the streets? Whoever you are. You know, it's just that kind of fear-mongering that got us where we are and will not get us anywhere towards resolving the numerous, massive problems that this country faces right now. If you want to complain, then complain. Just don't do it to me. I don't want to hear it. If you've got a solution to offer, if you've got a reasoned analysis of what you think got us here, then bring it. Bring it to the show, bring it to my website. If you've got something other than that, you won't be on the show very long. I'll post your rant on my website because I think it provides a good contrast to everything else that's there. I think we've had enough of it. That's why I started the show. I'm not going to start, engaging in trading insults with people who aren't willing or apparently don't have, aren't willing to bring an argument to the table. I assume because they don't have one. Arguments, resolving things, it's harder than complaining about it. You got doers and talkers in this world. It's a lot easier to complain about a problem than to actually solve it. And when you can't solve it, the reaction anymore has been, well, then I'll just make people afraid of anybody who doesn't agree with me. Don't bother on this show. Don't bother. You can send it to my website if you like. But as far as asking me to call you, I wouldn't wait around for the phone to ring. We'll see you next week.